Hi, and welcome to 15 Minutes of Consulting Best Practices. The format for anyone who's new here is very simple. You ask questions, ideally by just typing them right into the chat, and then we answer your question so you can build a better, happier, more successful, more satisfying consulting business. I'm David A. Fields, and I am joined today by a very special guest, Chris Vaughan. Chris is co-founder of Sequence Consulting and is an expert in trade associations. And since working with trade associations and similar alliance partners is one of the 5 marketing musts for building a consulting practice, and since I know a lot of you have questions about how to create and leverage relationships with trade associations, I wanted to have Chris here, just to answer your questions. So Chris, thank you so much for joining me and welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here.
That is terrific. And hello to John and Michael and John and Suzanne and Dan, and the rest of you. Type in your questions for Chris so that we can take full advantage of having this amazing expertise with us. Now, there were some questions that were submitted in advance, and it takes a minute to see your questions. So, Jaron, and Jaren's back, by the way, for those of you who are going, where's Jaren been? Jaren's back. Jaren, what do we have in the bag of questions that came up? All right, I'll read this question from Dan, and then Chris, I'm going to put you on the spot. You get to answer this. What is the best way to identify the trade association that your ideal prospects are most likely to be part of? Good question. And once identified, what's the best way to get connected with that association in a way to open avenues for conversation? And look, John, you just typed in, I think, almost the same question, which is like, how do we pick the right trade association? Chris, what's the answer?
Well, first, let's step back a second. So trade associations are a catch-all term. There's really 2 kinds of associations. There are trade associations where the companies are members and professional associations where the people are members. So, for example, if you do business with hospitals, your hospitals might be part of the American Hospital Association, and the executives might be part of the American Congress of Healthcare Executives or any one of dozens of other associations for healthcare people. So the organizations belong to one group and the buyers belong to another, and they're both really important for consultants. So that's the first thing, is widen your lens a little bit. The other thing is people immediately think of the big national associations, and there's a good thing. For every association, there's at least 50 state associations, and most associations have local chapters as well, all of which have value for consultants and all of which create opportunities for you to meet clients. So don't be afraid when you're looking for where to start to think small. Maybe it makes more sense for you to engage with a local chapter or a state level association where there's a small concentration of qualified buyers rather than a large association. So that said, how do you figure out which one of those thousands of associations is the right one for you to belong with? There's an easy way, and there's an easier way and an easiest way. The easiest way is ask your clients. Ask your clients what they belong to, because they do, right? I guarantee you that your clients are involved at some level with one or more, probably multiple trade associations, and we make it actually part of our process to ask that question, right? What are you engaged with, and where do you think we should be engaged? You get a lot of valuable information. You can also ask AI. Exercise caution. We have seen it invent trade associations out of thin air that we wish existed that do not. Nevertheless, sometimes you can get good information out of Perplexity or what have you. And third, there is a search tool. It's called candid.org, and it is a directory of every not-for-profit organization in America. You have to register, but it's free. And it's literally a search tool where you type in the field of interest or what you think you're looking for, and it will give you a list with lots of information about every organization that comes up around that keyword. And that's the third thing we would try.
That's amazing. That's exceptional. So turning to your clients, I really like it's hysterical that AI creates trade associations, sort of like the seahorse emoji in trade association form. The idea, I hadn't actually thought about that when people were raising the question about this idea of turning to states also. We've had a lot of clients do that very successfully. Start locally.
That's right.
That because the second part of the question was like, okay, so how do we start conversations? Sometimes starting locally. We have a client that just was presenting on the main stage at the National a few weeks ago. And that's
Great.
because year one, they went and met people. Year two, they presented locally. Year three, they presented on the national stage. Is that a reasonable model to emulate?
It absolutely is. And the answer to the second part is, how do you get involved? Particularly if you're dealing with small to mid-size associations, is reach out directly to the CEO. Find the CEO and reach out to them directly. First step is join the organization. That way you're going to get all the info. You'll know what the opportunities are. They will check when you reach out to them, is this person a member? And also, it's just the right thing to do. I mean, if you don't have a few $100 to support the organization that feeds your family, then shame on you, tightwad. Write the check, right? You should belong to the organization. But reach out directly to the leader. They have a keen interest in getting new members engaged. They're looking for good partners. They need volunteers. They need content leaders. They need all those things. They or someone will get back to you. And you want that relationship with the CEO at the association, because that person knows everyone in the industry. People ask them for referrals all the time. So you want to cultivate that relationship.
Okay. That's excellent. I want to quickly go down through, because there's lots of things that have come in. Suzanne, in terms of which associations and industries are looking up for hiring consultants, I want to table that only because this is more about how do we use associations or work with them, collaborate with them as alliance partners to get to end customers, clients, as opposed to associations as clients. So we can address that another week. Michael, we're going to get to your question about handling toxic clients next week. We'll tee that up. Just so that we make best use of Chris while he's here. I'm not sure who asked this because it says LinkedIn user, but Chris, someone said, how do you deal with pay-to-play trade associations? In my industry, associations want consultants or vendors to sponsor to be involved and visible. And I've heard that. And we see that more in certain industries than others. What do you think about the pay-to-play?
Every association needs sponsors, right? They will all have opportunities for you to sponsor as a way to get in front of your clients. You have to evaluate whether that is a good use of money or not. For most consultants, the answer is not, right? Because you don't have something to show, right? You're not going to go to the exhibit. You're not going to set up a booth. So is getting your name in front of the audience worth whatever they're going to charge you? Frequently, it is not. Sometimes sponsoring in order to get speaking time, stage time, could be a good deal. Our advice may be counterintuitive. The smaller the audience, the better a deal that is for you. So smaller groups will ask for less to sponsor that type of content, and you will have a smaller, more intimate group that you'll have a better chance of establishing relationships with. But I would say view those with extreme caution. We seldom, but not never, do that.
Interesting. Yeah, because that's where I was going to go with you. And that corresponds with, we often tell people, given a choice between main stage and a breakout group, you actually want a breakout group, because those people choose to come see you. And they're making the choice. They're showing they're interested in what you have to say. Whereas if you're main stage, people just show up because you're main stage. So you do get more exposure. But in terms of driving clients, it's actually helpful to be in front of a smaller group that's more interested in what you have to say. Is that kind of somewhat similar or parallel?
Absolutely. And to give you an example, a real example from our business, we had the opportunity to sponsor. It was a CEO meeting where we were guaranteed FaceTime with 80 CEOs of associations in our target market. That's a no-brainer sponsorship for us. And we paid to do it, but that was money well spent. Would we have paid to be in front of a room of 20,000? Probably not. And we've tried that in the past. So we absolutely agree that sort of the smaller invitational audiences are often worth the investment, and the larger audiences, in our experience, just aren't.
Excellent. That's perfect. All right. Katrin says, associations normally don't want to be seen as shilling specific products or services. So how do you create impact that gets you noticed without violating, I guess, that thing? And we saw this again last week with a client who wasn't even allowed to put a QR code up on screen. That simply led to something saying, hey, contact me if you're interested. So how do you create impact? How do you get noticed without, violating this principle that associations have?
Yeah, it's really important. Associations are non-sales environments, right? And consultants that don't understand that make life really difficult for the rest of us. they're trusted communities, and what they're looking for are good partners. So if you want to stand out, ask yourself, how can I be the very best partner that I can be, right, to this organization and to this member? It's not about pitching your product or your great methodology or whatever else. How can I generate relationships that have lasting value for the people that I meet in a way that are going to create opportunities that will make it easy for me to sell later? It's a very different way of thinking about it. But the one cardinal rule of selling in associations is don't do that. You're not there to pitch. You're there to build networks and relationships and trust.
So we would just call that being right side up.
Exactly.
And remembering it that way with associations, as with clients and prospects, it's not about you. It's about them. And
Agreed.
So make yourself valuable for them. Seems like good advice to me. Dan, we're also going to put your question on the list to make sure we get to next week when we have a general Q&A. It's a great question. The David Meyer asked for the association website again. And is that I know we have a link that we're showing at the end. Is that
Candid.org.
Candid.org. Okay. And Michael, is there a difference in your marketing from driving clients, choosing smaller breakout groups versus larger groups? Is there any difference in your marketing from driving clients, choosing smaller breakout groups versus larger groups? I'm not 100% sure I understand the question, but you might, Chris. So Michael, can you rephrase that and we'll give it another shot? Katrin, excellent. Are there other questions? If not, I think we've got at least one more that was submitted. Jaron, what was submitted in advance? What's the best way to get on a speaking panel or committee without coming across as self-promotional?
Yeah, great instinct, by the way, right? Self-promotion is a deal killer, right? They smell that a mile away. What they're looking for is they want your expertise, right? They want the value that you can deliver. Step one is join the association, because that is where they will tell you when the call for papers is coming out. That is when they'll tell you when the call for volunteers is coming out. Only members get that. Step one is join. And step two is respond in a way, like David said, that's right side up. You're not talking about yourself. You're not talking about what you do. You're not talking about what you sell. You're talking about what you uniquely can bring to that opportunity because of the experience and the expertise that you have. And most of these all of these, they're hungry for that, right? They want new thinking. They want new ideas. They want people help to solve their members' problems, and they need volunteers to help them do stuff. So if you come at it with that mindset, you'll be pleasantly surprised how often you hear the answer yes. And if you establish yourself as that kind of partner, they will come back to you again and again and again.
That's awesome. My sense has been that most trade associations are actually very hungry for value that they can provide their membership. Because unless they provide value, it's really hard for them to justify their dues. And so as long as you give them something that they can pass along that creates value, they're really happy for it. Do you agree with that? I mean, you're much closer to a lot more than I am.
I absolutely agree with that. They're hungry for content, right? Articles for their magazines and publications, for speakers, for webinars, for people to serve on committees, and all of those obviously are great opportunities for us as consultants. But it's very much a win-win environment, right? It's about building this sort of long-term trusted partnership. It's this paid off very well for us and for many folks we know that have invested in this way of developing business.
Yeah, excellent. And really quickly, Michael says, how do you get to the smaller groups? How do you get to those small trade associations? In my opinion, what do you think, Chris?
How do you get to them?
Well, and I assume, Michael, you're saying, like, how do you create a relationship with a small trade association that's targeted, that has those 80 people that are your exact buyers in the room?
Once you found them, right? So asking your clients or searching or using, again, start at the top. These small associations have very small staff. They have CEOs that are desperately looking for help. That person's going to return your call, and they will connect you with the opportunities, and they will be interested in having that long-term relationship with you as someone they can count on to help them deliver value over time. The smaller the association, the easier it's going to be for you to get to the person at the top.
Yeah. Exactly right. And again, as long as you're not going in pitching, as long as you're going in saying, I value your members,
How can I
how do we
help?
help you create value for your members, then I think you're good. And oh my gosh, this was a bunch of great questions. Katrin, apologies we didn't get to your last one. And there's some others teed up for next week. But look, we hit our time. We've hit our 15 minutes. So thank you for spending 15 minutes with Chris and me. Please connect with us on LinkedIn. Jaron, look at that. Jaron has put our LinkedIn, including Chris's LinkedIn, and where you can see we should be referring to him as Doctor.
Yeah.
And so connect to both of us on LinkedIn. Also, check out Chris's nonprofit search tool. You were asking for what is the app, the web. It's right there. It's app.candid.org. That's it. So make sure you do that. And while you're at it and you're online, go visit Chris's website. Go visit Sequence, sequenceconsulting.com. It's right there. And with that, thank you so much for joining for Chris and for joining me. We hope you have a fabulous week. We talked about being right side up this week. And just remember, consulting is about them. It's about your clients and about your prospects. So give them value and give them kindness. And we will see you next week. Take care, all. Thanks again, Chris.
Thanks, everyone.